is Suit Up Sports. Suit Up Sports. Where opinions are as sharp as a tailored suit. No fluff, no gimmicks, just unfiltered, hard-hitting takes on sports and a whole lot more. It's time to suit up. Now here's your host, DJ the Suit Stout.
Welcome to Suit Up Sports. I'm DJ the Suit Stout, along with 10-year NFL vet Frank Garcia. Frank, how you doing?
I'm doing great, bud. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm fired up.
Yeah,
I'm fired up.
I see that. You started off the show with a lot of
fired
energy.
up, man. I stayed up last night, watched all the great basketball games, stayed up to watch the end of that Texas Tech game, which to this point was the best game of the tournament. First game to go overtime. Texas Tech comes back 13 points with less than 5 minutes left in the game.
Second biggest lead blown all time.
Yeah.
16.
That was the kind of games I think that people that are saying the tournament hadn't been as much fun this year. That's what we've been waiting for. Now, and honestly, I think every game last night was pretty doggone good. Florida ended up running away against Maryland, but other than that, the games are really good.
Well, that's what you expected when you get to the elite, the Sweet 16, the Elite Eight, the Final Four, is the cream rising to the top. And
yep.
I think that's one of the things in years past that we've had those Cinderella stories that have stepped in and been able to make it, and that's a great little story to watch them. But when they get to that Sweet 16, that Elite Eight, you see they don't have the gas left in their tank. And the talent takes over when the hype and the heart wear out.
And to that point, last night the top seeds were all undefeated straight up, and the totals on the game all went over.
Yeah.
So tonight, if you're betting and you want to go with trends, you're going to take Auburn, and you're going to take Houston, and you're going to go over. You're also going to take Tennessee and go over in those games, and we'll see what happens.
Tennessee would be the only one that you'd kind of be a little concerned about, just because of the style of basketball. I know Purdue's been more of an up-paced team, but Houston just plays great defense, and that's going to be a great matchup. It's going to be a great matchup between those two teams.
Yeah, Ole Miss, Michigan State's the one that I'm kind of excited about because Ole Miss coming out of the SEC, we've seen what the SEC has done. I mean, even Arkansas last night going to the end of the game and really blowing.
Arkansas really blew that game.
They blew it, and so Ole Miss, tonight against Michigan State, who is a Big Ten banger. Izzo, tough-minded teams. I'm excited about that. And then the Kentucky-Tennessee game. First of all, you've got Kentucky against Tennessee, two schools that hate each other. Kentucky's beat Tennessee both times they played this year.
Very close games.
Very close.
They've ended up winning the games, and it's going to be the third time.
It's tough to beat a team 3 times, as we talked about.
Also, it's just, we talked about that as well, but it's also sometimes you're just big brother to little brother.
Yeah.
And what your style of play just doesn't fit with the way that they play. So that may be just the case here with the that's the game to me when you start talking about the upsets and where teams rank and all the things that we just have to mention. But Tennessee has a bad matchup tonight against Kentucky.
They do, and Tennessee, to their credit, is playing the best basketball they've played all year. They've had a hard time scoring throughout the season, and in the tournaments before, they haven't had a drought where they go 6 or 7 minutes without scoring, which is kind of what's happened to them during the year. So that'll be a great game. But let's get into last night's game. And let's start with the Duke game. Duke wins 193 over Arizona. Caleb Love, the Duke assassin, he's had their number. He still has 35 points. At one point in time, I think he had 13 straight points. He did all he could to keep Arizona in the game. But Cooper Flagg, the guy that we've heard about all year long, the guy that if you watch the ACC, you've seen Cooper Flagg game in, game out, playing great basketball. But last night, he put on what a lot of people are saying could be the best performance they've seen in the NCAA tournament. 30 points, 7 assists, 6 rebounds, 3 blocks.
There's only been one other stat line similar to that looked and matched that, and that was Ed O'Bannon back when he played for UCLA 30 years ago.
Wow.
They were saying that's the second or that's equal to that stat line in what he had. So those are the two best is what the experts were saying after the game. Barkley and all the guys that sit there and break it down. And they're just saying that even Barkley, Barkley, I love Barkley.
I do too.
I absolutely love him because he's honest, he's truthful, he's
deprecating.
He's consistent in the way that he approaches things. He just tells you how he feels and what he thinks, and there's not any bias that goes with that. It's just this is what my eyes tell me, and I'm going to call a spade. I don't care. There's no racial, contact, things like that. It's just really about the game of basketball.
Yeah,
and
I agree.
He thought that Arizona was going to upset him, and there was a time where I got a little nervous too.
No doubt.
First half, second half, especially towards the end, where Duke kind of just allowed them to come back, and that's it's kind of been in the games that they've lost. It's been their MO a little bit, is that get it hot and they haven't really responded. The same way they lost to Kentucky earlier in the season after they blew a big lead. But Barkley said about Cooper Flagg last night, he says, you know what, this young man gets more and more time he plays. All things that go along with winning. And those guys have seen as much basketball as anybody. I respect their opinions a ton. But they said this guy is something that they haven't seen since maybe the life of Larry Bird. Right? The toughness, the passing, the love and the passion, Clark Kellogg, the love and the passion for the game, it just flows through him. And he loses himself in the game, is basically what his words were. And you just see that with the way that he plays. It just comes so natural and it looks so easy, and he has so much fun doing it. It's really a breath of fresh air, especially, when we start looking at the next level and, going to be the face of a sport. He could very easily be the face of the NBA for years.
Yeah, and he's a nightmare matchup. I mean, when you're going, he can play point. He can play any position on the court.
Well, that's what they did last night. They had to play him at point because Love was killing the ball handlers, and they had to give him that. They had to create that mismatch for Arizona, where they put a big guy on. They didn't have a matchup for Cooper Flagg.
No, and the thing about him last night, he really did show you his toolbox. I mean, he had 2 or 3 blocks where he didn't just barely block him. He threw him about 15
volleyball,
feet.
Spike into the third row.
Yeah, and then he probably had another 4 alley-oop passes to Malawach, who played incredible, where you thought Flagg was going to go for the shot himself, and he just floated up the ball, and you're kind of like, what is he doing? And then there's Malawach. Bam,
right.
every time.
It was through the chaos, and then he still has the presence and the calmness to understand the right play.
Yeah.
And that's what's so unique, is that anybody that's played sports, when you're falling down, you start panicking a little bit. You start speeding up things internally in your mind and in your body. You're like, oh, I'm going to fall. Let me throw, let me slam this against somebody's leg. In those moments, everything slows down for him. And it's like it comes in slow motion, and he can see it's like the Matrix. He can see the pieces moving, where he just lets the ball up knowing that Malawai is going to be there. It's going to be a kick out to a 1-3 because everybody's collapsed on him, and he's almost falling down, but he makes that perfect pass. Not here, not here. I mean, right there. And I can't say, I'm a Duke fan, obviously, but I can't say I've enjoyed watching a player more since maybe, a guy like Kobe or Larry Bird. He has that type of dynamic presence that it's captivating. You want to watch.
Well, and the one thing that he has that we don't see in a lot of these young players, even the young talented players these days, is what you kind of alluded to and what Barkley alluded to, is that he's going 100% all the time. He's not only, he knows he's going to be the first pick in the draft in the NBA. He knows he is months away from being worth millions and millions and millions of dollars, yet no one's playing harder than him out there. He's a great leader. And look, the Duke team last night, when everyone talks about how long they are, how tall they are, how they create tough matchups all over the court. The thing that really showed me last night what a hard matchup they're going to be for anybody is at the end of the game when Arizona was pressing them, and Duke made it look easy
to break the press. They threw it over the top
because they have 4 guys that can handle the ball, and they spread them out, and they ran the same play. They ended up out. The outlet was Sion James, who, by the way, Sion James had a great game last night. Started off hitting the shots. Tough physical defender.
I mean, you talk about a presence out there.
No doubt.
I mean, that guy is a bodybuilder and a basketball player's mindset, right?
Yeah.
And he just looks like a physical freak of nature. Like he could play outside linebacker for the Steelers today.
Absolutely, or running back, he's a 40%.
He's 6'5", 6'6".
He's a 40% 3-point shooter. He didn't get enough credit for that.
He was the guy that kept Duke in the game,
no doubt,
knocking those corner threes down.
He got off to a great start and kept it going. And then the other guy for Duke that that played really well that doesn't get enough credit, especially on the defensive side, is Knipple. He made some big free throws down the stretch, a 91% free throw shooter, but he plays really good defense. And he reminds you of that. And he's, by the way, he's 6'5", 6'6", too. Like, it's not like he's a 6'2" guy. He's a big dude, but he reminds you of maybe like me when I would play basketball. I was never going to be the tallest guy, but I was going to fight for every ball. He happens to be 6'5", can shoot the lights out, and he's just tough in there. He would be the guy, by the way, that if players stayed 2-3 years like they used to, if you're a rival of Duke, and let's use the Tar Heels, for instance, I don't even think it'd be Flag that they would hate. I think Knipple would be the guy they would hate because of the way he plays.
Well, he is that. I don't know if you remember the team with Shire, with Plumlee, and the coach now.
When the 2010
when they won the 2010 championship,
yep.
Right? And you look at the role he played down the stretch, for that team when they made their run. He got hot. He played well, but he was a smart basketball player that didn't make a lot of mistakes. He might not be the most athletically gifted guy out there, but he's that guy that he's the Tom Brady, he's the field general that you're looking for, that makes great basketball plays, that pick and roll, with him and Malawach, the things that he does and provides, and the rebounding, the diving on the floor. This whole team kind of epitomizes what really fundamental basketball should be. When you go to these AAU tournaments, I've heard this many times from a lot of these scouts.
Mm-hmm.
They look at these guys that go up there and score 40 points and say, everybody can do that, right? But what they really want to know, who's the guy that gets the assists? Who's the guy that gets the steals? Who's the guy that gets the rebounds? Who's the guy that's the floor general, the Cooper Flags, and the guys that are going to go out there and do it all? Because those are going to be the ones that are going to be the best basketball players down their stretch, because there's no weaknesses in their game. And that's what Knipple reminds me. He's a guy that just is going to go out there and be a great basketball player. And you can't teach that. It's a God-given ability that you really can't describe, because it's not 6'5". It doesn't run this fast. It doesn't jump this high, but it's the vision, the touch, the things like that Steph Curry has that you can't really explain, the depth perception, how hard to shoot it, how high to shoot it, the creativity, and all the things that go along with that. And it's amazing because, I think this game, could have got away from Duke. They had a little bit of a breakdown, but, at the very end of it, it's just like this team has a confidence and a belief that no matter what happens, we're going to be calm, cool, and collected. And nothing's going to rattle us, and we're going to make the play and make that run. When they make that run, we're going to answer.
Yeah, and you got a lot of that. You have to give credit to Shire, but another thing that I think for Duke has made a huge difference in the last month is, number one, is Malawach. I mean, his game has transformed. The kid's only been playing basketball, I want to say, for 4 or 5 years, and defensively, he is a huge presence. Rebounding the ball, huge presence. And now he's scoring. I mean, his little floaters and whatever. And then the other one, and I'm going to screw his name up, but Goomba, number 21.
Yeah, you just the word. I'm trying to Google it.
Well, even the spelling ain't going to help you. It's like NGI. I don't know, but
can I buy a vowel?
Yeah, I think it's Goomba, but he missed half the season with an injury, and he's a true freshman, so he had not played since his high school game.
He, to me, was the X factor in last night's game, minus Flag, right? I mean, Flag was the difference maker, right? But he was the guy that, when Malawach got in foul trouble, came in and played some big quality minutes.
Yep.
Big quality minutes. And I didn't give enough credit to Arizona and their two bigs down low, and how aggressive and athletic they were. Their game plan was to beat up Duke. Very similar to what they saw with North Carolina do, was to get on them, use their size, their age, and their strength to kind of push them around a little bit. And if Goomba didn't come in and have the presence that he had,
tough,
Duke could have very easily lost that game.
Yeah, because like you said, Malawach got in foul trouble, and then Goomba ended up fouling out. But while he was in there, he's been a huge addition. Let's move now to who Duke's going to play next game, Alabama. They whooped BYU 113-88. The if you like 3-point shooting, then you love this game. Alabama set a record for attempts on 3-pointers. Made 3-pointers with 25 made 3-pointers.
They shoot 53, 54.
It was 53 or 54. Yeah. And here was a crazy stat. They made 25 threes. If you took away all the 2-pointers they made, they still win the game.
Yeah.
And then they were led by Sears, who had 34 points with 10 3-pointers.
The guy hadn't been able to hit the bucket. He hadn't been able to make a basket in the last 2 games.
Cold.
He's been ice cold.
Yeah.
Not last night.
You knew it was coming.
Last night he could have been at the free throw line or at the 3-point line, eyes closed, and that thing was going.
Him and Youngblood had 15 threes between them. Both guards were shooting it great. And
he was one away from the NCAA record. And I thought they were going to give it.
I thought the coach should have let him play, but he probably wanted to save some bullets for knowing they probably were going to go up against Duke. But that's the thing about Alabama. They're as athletic as anybody in the country. They've got 2 great guards, as we saw last night, who had not been shooting the ball well. But one thing that everybody says about Alabama, and I think I said it before the game, when they're on, they're really tough to beat. Now, I don't think they're ever going to be on like that again. 25 3-point. I mean, the records they set. And if you're Duke, who will play them Saturday, you got to guard that 3-point line and guard it well, because their inside guys are okay. Nelson's actually he didn't do much yesterday, but Nelson, if he gets off to a good start, can be a problem. But that's where Duke, I think, having the 2 bigs inside, having the tall guards, the 6'5", 6'9" that can get out there and guard, are going to give them trouble.
Here's the biggest difference that we're going to sit there and talk about: the matchups between BYU and the matchups between Duke.
Oh, night and day.
It's night and day. BYU had to pick or choose their poison, and they chose to guard the pick. So they allowed those wide open 3-point shots that weren't really contested from Alabama. So that was the biggest difference. BYU, their coach's philosophy was to pack in the paint, let those guys shoot, and if we're going to run out on the ball and try to defend. Duke, if they decide to do that, they're running out with 6'6", 6'7",
exactly,
6'10", 7'1". They're running out with big guys out there, which is going to distract those shooters from having those wide open looks. If they want to play ball on, they can do that as well, because they have a guy like Malawach in the middle, and Goomba that has stepped up. And now that they get their third defender back, even though he was kind of still hampered with Brown, his one arm, but they have the ability, and Cooper Flagg to be able to hedge off and play help side defense. They have the ability to allow these guys to penetrate into the paint, and as long as they just don't give up the wide open threes, it's going to be tough for Alabama to repeat that. The other thing that I wanted to mention, you ever played a round of golf where you go out and shoot your best round ever?
I mean, I've played a lot of golf. I've only had that happen a few times. You've had it happen a lot.
If you go out there and you light it up one day, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so easy. I didn't remember right play. That's why Alabama played it.
Yeah.
Right? But the hard part to that is if you play the very next day, is replicating that.
Yep.
Right. And for whatever reason, it's just everything's aligned with your body, your mind. You're not thinking. The next day, you're expecting to go out there and do those things because you just did it the day before, and you get frustrated the first time you miss because, gosh, what's happening? And then I try to make an adjustment. I try for basketball, squeeze their elbow in or jump a little higher or whatever it might be. I know they get a couple of days off before their next game, but it's not going to be, in my opinion, the same type of repeat game that they just had, because it was a record-breaking game. It was just like everything aligned, and to be able to do that again, that's going to be really tough for Alabama.
It will, and that's not to say that they won't shoot well. I mean, I just don't see them making 25. I mean,
they're good shooters.
They're great shooters.
I don't know if they're going to repeat what they just did. And I think in order for them to beat a team like Duke, right, that has a lot of pieces, a lot of depth. More importantly, I think that's the thing that nobody talks about with Duke, is the lack of depth, or the amount of depth that they have. The guys coming off the bench.
Yeah.
There's 10 guys that could play and start on any team.
Oh, no doubt.
Right? And Alabama, they have 5 guys that can match it with anybody in the country. And when they're on, they're going to be as good, if not better than anybody, especially if they're hitting their outside shots. But what happens when you go to the bench? And that's going to be, I think, the difference between 8-10 points. I think, and that's kind of where Duke stands right now as the favorite over Alabama.
Well, and BYU came into the game shooting more 3-pointers than anybody. So Alabama said, all right, hold my beer.
Yeah.
Hold my beer, and we're going to show you how it's done, because it wasn't like BYU. Listen, BYU scored they scored 88 points.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, 88 points is going to win most games. I mean, matter of fact, 88 points would have beat Florida, Texas Tech, and I know you can't really say that, but still 88 points is a lot of points. But Alabama beat them at their own game, and which is a 3-point contest, and they whooped them.
Here's going to be the interesting factor into this. We talk about this all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? With styles of sports. We talked about it just a little earlier with Kentucky, Tennessee matchups. Style of play. What does Alabama try to get you to do? Create chaos, run up and down the court. I mean, they were pulling shots within 10 seconds
Yeah.
of getting the ball, and they're yakking it up and throwing and trying to get the rebounds, keeping balls alive. You're going to get some loose ball rebounds, things like that. But the tempo of the game is going to speed up incrementally when you play like that. What does Duke do well? They can play that gap style, but they're a much, much better controlled half-court offense than what Alabama is. They're going to maximize possessions at points. They're going to have their runs, but there's the matchup problems for Alabama when you slow the game down is going to favor Duke. And that's going to be the interesting key in the game is that who plays to whose tempo?
Right.
Is Duke going to have the are they going to play my style or am I going to play their style? And that's the key in any sport you play, especially team sports, is that we do what we do well better than what you do well. And if we do that and we play to our strengths, doesn't matter who we're playing, we do what we do well better than what you do well, we're going to win more than we lose.
Yeah, I agree. And Alabama plays that NBA style, man. And you're right. Duke can certainly play that, but Duke prefers, I think, to set up, run a play. I mean, you saw last night, I think out of 3 different timeouts, Shire called a different play that worked every time. And it's going to be a great game. I haven't even looked yet. What's the over-under in that game?
I have not looked at the over-under, but the spread is Duke by, I think, 6 or 8 right now.
Yeah, I mean,
at the first line.
It's got to be over 185.
No,
both teams score 100 points a game.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm going to look it up right now. I'm going to look it up.
While you're looking that up, we'll go into the Florida Maryland game, and Florida is a team that both of us kind of felt coming in the tournament probably was the best team. They were playing the best, along with Duke, but we felt Florida is just very athletic. They've got great guard play. I mean, Clayton is a top 5 pick in the NBA draft, probably. A lot of people like to compare him to Steph Curry. They're a well-balanced team. They didn't have one guy score 30 last night, but they had 5 or 6 guys in double digits. So, they can come at you. They are deep, and they can keep coming at you and coming at you. They've got size. They've got great guard play. And Maryland hung in there for a while. Queen is a beast for Maryland. True freshman, had 27 last night, had the game-winning shot the night before that, or the game before that. But you got to feel for Maryland a little bit. Their coach, I think, didn't help them doing any favors with some of the distractions as far as what him and the AD leaving, and then him and the rumors about he maybe going to a different team, and so there's all that kind of stuff going on. But Queen is a man. And like we talked about this the other day, the fact that him and Flag were on the same high school team, like I don't know if they ever lost a game. If they did, the coach would be fired. Like, how do you lose? And I'm forgetting one other one they had. That's a stud. But Florida ends up winning 87-71. I know those of you who wager on games like Frank and I do. We had Florida. We had to sweat it for the first half, but in the second half, Florida came out, turned on the gas, man. And
I'll tell you what, I sweated in the first half because I thought I was putting in a team total.
The Duke first half.
I thought when I bet it that it was. I was like, "What happened to the spread? It went down from 9 to 5."
Brand tells me, he's like, "Dude, the Duke spread's gone down to 5.5." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "Yeah, a bunch of money must be coming in." So I go, "Man, I've got him at 9.5." So I go and I look, and I'm like, "I still have 9.5." Then I saw the look on your face of like, "Oh, no."
I just bet the first half.
You bet the first half with that 3-pointer,
and the last second 3-pointer by Cooper Flag saved my ass.
Yes, it did.
From that, and went from me being a loser to a winner. So, good for him. But the game that you're asking about with the over and under between Duke and Alabama, what'd you say it was?
I mean, I would say 185.
It's 175.
Wow.
174.5, 175. But that again goes to the point I think I was trying to make, is that Duke is not going to play to their tempo. Duke is not going to feed into Alabama's strength. They're going to try to force Alabama to slow down to play to their level. Now, it doesn't mean it's not going to go over. It doesn't mean
it's still a high-scoring game. You're still looking at it in the 80s.
I'm going to hold the ball, and it's not going to be run down the court and yak it up off of And the other thing that's hard to do, is that when you're making a lot of shots, right? It's easier to get set back on defense. When you miss shots, that's when you see the run out, the fast breaks, and the tempo change.
Yeah.
Duke and Shire and this team, what scares me a little bit is that they're young. And sometimes, when you're playing really, really competitive sports and everything's kind of equal, the game does what? It speeds up.
Mhm.
Everything speeds up. The people that have the ability, or the teams that have the ability to slow things down, are the teams that have a lot of experience because they've been through that, they've seen that, and they know how their body is going to react to those situations. Duke's been in plenty of pressure situations, but nothing like this.
Well, and
Not with these freshmen.
but to that point, two things. Number one, Duke hasn't lost a game since February. That was last night when Arizona put it to 5 late in the game was
4.
or 4.
Yeah.
It was really one of the tighter games they've been in a while. But here's what I'll say about Duke's experience. Zion James is a 5th-year senior, and I'm forgetting his name, the shooting guard, Proctor.
Mhm.
Proctor's a junior. So your backcourt is made up of a junior and a 5-year player. So when you've got experience at guard, it really helps. And you saw it last night with Zion James in particular, kind of taking over and calming them down. Even there was a foul on Zion James. It was a trap call, and you even saw he started to let his emotions, and he kind of calmed down and went over and got the team calm after the flagrant and then the non-flagrant. So that's the one thing I will say. They've got experience at guards, and then their freshmen don't play like freshmen. Florida, same thing. They've got great guard play.
Alabama. I mean, look at Alabama.
Alabama, no doubt. And Sears is no young guy.
We've talked about that at the beginning of the tournament. It seems to me like the teams that have the best guards are going to make the deepest runs, right? And one guard can make a difference, as we saw last night with Caleb Love. He went out there and kept Arizona in that game because they were very close to being blown out halfway through the second half.
Yeah.
They were very close to getting blown out. And then he went on that streak. He said, no, not on my watch.
We're going to be ready. 13 points in a row, yeah.
He scored 13 points in a row and hit some big threes and created a lot of momentum for Arizona. And you saw his second chance points, the tip and dunks, the alley-oops.
Yeah.
You saw them kind of get life because of what he was able to do. And that's going to be, I think, the factor or the key that you try to slow down with Alabama. Duke is not BYU. You can allow penetration. Those guards are not going to kill you because you have a lot of inside.
You got 2 big dogs in
there.
there.
You have 3 big dogs. You got the tallest team in college basketball in there, and you have a 7-foot presence, has some athleticism, and can move. And then you have Flag coming, like I said, and then you have Knipple if you'd like. But you can put guys on him to guard those two shooters and not leave them.
Yeah.
And then let everybody else try to beat you. Now, if they get broken down on the defense and then they kick it out, that's a different story. But those guys can move their feet well enough where they can stay in front of them and even off of them because they have the height to reach when they go up and make their shot.
I think it's going to be a fun game to watch, man. I mean, 2 really good teams, 2 well-coached teams. And then Florida's going to be taking on Texas Tech, man. And
what a game.
That was the game of the night. Anyone that was watching the Duke game, you're watching the score, and Arkansas is winning by 10, 8, 12, 13. And then all of a sudden, as the Duke game starts coming to an end, you see Texas Tech cut to 3. I turned it right over in time to see Texas Tech hit the 3 with 9 seconds left. Arkansas comes down. I think they could have got a better shot out to try to win it, but they missed it. We go to overtime, the first overtime game of the NCAA tournament this year.
It was a bad matchup for the guy dribbling because
Wagner,
Texas Tech's best defender, ended up on the ball.
Yep.
Right, and if you would have said to anybody, let's just pass it one time, you'd have got a much better opportunity because, I mean, that guy was like glue and didn't leave that the offensive player and made him take a very difficult shot. The guy who made the shot before for Texas Tech, he reminds me of
you mean the one that the in overtime? Williams.
He could probably be player of the year. He has that type of game, but it's like that old man game.
Yeah,
right? He's a big body. He doesn't really do anything flashy, but he can roll it in. He can shoot it. He can bank it. He's like that guy when you go to the gym. You're like, that guy used to play somewhere.
Well, you don't see
he doesn't miss.
You don't see he has to post up much anymore. Number one,
That's right.
And whenever they ran isolation for him, it reminded me of if you were a Charlotte Hornet fan back in the day with Larry Johnson.
Yep.
Their coach at the time, Alan Briscoe, ran a play called Dallas. And it would isolate Larry Johnson up top, and then Larry would either shoot it or take it to the hole. Normally take it to the hole, and as soon as he got the ball, you knew he was going down and he was backing in. Something that's interesting and what could have been You saw Caleb Love go for 35 last night. And then you saw Williams, who didn't really shoot the ball well, but he ended up obviously with the big shot at the end, a couple big shots at the end. And
he led him down the stretch. He hit the right-handed little hook. Him in there at the very end, he took it to his left and then kind of, you're right, posted up and hit the two guys on him, but both playing great defense, but he just found a way to get the ball through there and knock it off the backboard into the rim, into the hole.
He and Caleb Love were in the same recruiting class in freshman at Carolina with R.J. Davis. And Caleb Love ended up leaving to go to Arizona. Williams left, and now is at Texas Tech. But, man, if you're a Carolina fan and you're seeing that stat, you're going, good God, think about what could have been. But
here's my question. Right, when you look at all, I mean, I know we're going to get into this later on in the show, but these transfers, the portal, the NIL, and you look at the 16 teams that are left, how many starters were on these teams that came from other teams? I mean, it's nuts. Absolutely.
It's only going to get worse.
And you're right. It's only going to get worse. But the amount of and to me, we said this. I know a lot of people are talking about it now. We said this before the tournament even started. They said, I don't think there's going to be a lot of upsets due to the fact that you're seeing teams build all-star teams with other teams' rosters. Their backup players, these guys that are late bloomers that go to San Francisco, UC San Francisco, or they go to Gonzaga, or they go to New Mexico State, and now you have an opportunity to come play against the big boys and test your skills in the SEC or the Big Ten against the cream of the crop, the ACC. You know, when they're doing it. This is a good year to use them as an example, but now you can go see your skills against the blue bloods
and get paid.
Yeah. So there's a reason for the lack of upsets, and there's a reason for a lot of chop when you start watching these games. But that was the big reason that we used going into this tournament, is that I wouldn't be surprised. And that's the reason why I have chalk in most of my 8s and 16s. I mean, the bottom left bracket was the one that I was concerned about. I had Florida. Didn't know between Texas Tech and Arkansas. I took Texas Tech, to finally win that. But I thought St. John's was the same thing. St. John's got upset early.
Well, and just to dive into the portal for a second, 1,100 kids have entered the portal just in the last 72 hours, which is just crazy, number one. Number two, you and I both felt that the portal opening this past Monday was kind of ridiculous because you've got 16 teams practicing, to get ready for the Sweet 16 that are kind of hamstrung. And you've got players that we talked about. We would be shocked if any, if not a few, would enter the portal while being on a team in the Sweet 16. And as far as I know, there was only one, and that was Pippen from Michigan. They'll be playing tonight. But I and I both were pretty much on the same page about that. But I saw two different opinions that at least I can understand. And one was by Bruce Pearl, which kind of surprised me, right? I mean, head coach Auburn, one of the best teams in the country, has used the portal successfully, obviously. And what he said kind of made sense to me. He goes, look, if we don't make it on that Monday, right, if the portal didn't open Monday, is it fair to the kids whose season has already been over for 4 to 6 weeks to put their lives on hold for another month to decide what they're going to do? Now, I know we can poke holes in that if we want to, but at least that, to me, coming from one of the best coaches in college basketball, I thought, okay, well, if my kid played on a team that didn't make the tournament and I'm going to enter the portal, I don't want to wait 4 to 6 weeks to figure out where he's. I want to get him there right now and let's start working, get with the team, get with the coaching staff. So to me, that at least makes some sense.
I mean, teams aren't going to just jump right into the season once they just got done.
But you still,
you can get acclimated to the school. You can acclimate to the surroundings.
To see that to me, these kids now. Point, though, is all that stuff you said is true, but it's way down the totem pole now because now it's a business negotiation. So what he's saying basically is these kids that have been out of basketball now for 4 or 5 weeks. Is it fair that like they should be able to figure out what their future is? They should be able to cut a deal with the team. And by the way, a lot of players already have. We've seen some of the, I think 3 of the top 10 players in the portal have already signed with different teams. Yeah. So we've already seen kind of what he was talking about. And I think even with what he's saying, I could even point to more of a disadvantage now for the players who are in the tournament who aren't going to enter the portal until afterwards because they don't want to be unloyal or cause a distraction, even though we've seen coaches jump like that.
My question to him would be, is what's the difference if they wait 1 week or 3 weeks?
I'll tell you the difference. My opinion. And I think the last kid's name that came to mind is Dent. And I think he played at New Mexico. And his head coach, Rick Pitino's son, has left, and everyone was saying he was top 2 or 3 guy in the portal. And he did. I can't remember who he signed with. I want to say UCLA. He's already signed with somebody. Now, let's say that he had to wait until the tournament was over. And now these players on Duke and Auburn, all these guys now enter the portal. The money that he was going to get may not be there. And it's the same thing you talk about even with the NFL when you had to wait. And
we're placating.
It's not placating.
That is what that's doing, because if we're worried about the feelings and the opportunities and fairness, right? When have we ever done that in sports? Sports is about the best person gets the job, the best person makes the most money, and there's always going to be that opportunity for somebody to come take that money away from you if you're not doing your job. So you can sit there and say, "Oh, it's not fair to this kid," or "He needs the opportunity." Well, he has to earn that opportunity. And if he's not, and there's nothing wrong with saying, if you're not good enough, son, get better.
Well,
you're not good enough right now.
And I'm playing devil's advocate because I agree with you. I think that the portal should wait. I'm just making what Bruce Paul's argument was.
And that's what I would say.
And it does make sense to me because, again, just like we can say it's not fair that a kid on Duke or Auburn or whoever is going to have to wait until after the term. They don't have to, but they're going to for the reasons we've discussed. It also, I could see him saying it's
DEI, I mean, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I mean,
maybe, but
I mean, this is not the YMCA.
My point is,
this is not everybody gets
when you're talking about, but figuring out where your future is not a trophy.
Yeah, well, you can make that argument, DJ. Or
and again, I'm playing devil's advocate.
He can make that argument if he wants, but at the end of the day, if those kids from Duke get into the portal and they wanted to go to a school that one of those kids at New Mexico State was at, and they're better, what do you think they're going to do to that kid that transferred there? All right, thanks for playing. You can stand back up. And is that the real reason why you went there in the first place? So there's always going to be that risk of, and I'm talking to you.
No, I get
about what's going on here.
Totally.
But what I would say to him is that there's always going to be that risk of a guy that's going to be better than you. Sometimes you just have to go win it out. And if you're not good enough, then you need to work to get better. That's it.
I think in certain schools, you're right. And for instance, and I'm going to use this crazy, let's say that Knippel entered the portal. He's not going to. Let's say he did.
Yeah. And he's going to be in the NBA, but let's say he had another year. Use the other guy that's backing up behind him, the 3-point shooter from Carolina.
Evans.
Yeah, use Evans.
So Evans, who a lot of people think top 20 pick in the draft, but let's say Evans entered the portal, right? If he entered the portal, now I'm making your argument.
He's going to make a lot of NIL money. He has the opportunity to come back another year to be a top 5 pick, top 10 pick. He can make a lot more money. Right now, he can make as much money in the NIL as he does, with that first NBA contract as a 20-plus pick if he goes there. Right? The thing that we have to remember as players coming out is that we're just talking about the best American basketball players, but the game has become world. And now there's a lot more talent worldwide from Europe and Spain and Argentina, and wherever it is that has the ability to come in and take those spots. So the pyramid is getting a lot tighter up top. So he might benefit from being in the, but he's not going to jump because he's playing in the Elite Eight.
Well, but what I'm saying, my point on that was when you're talking about there's always a better player or get better. Your point is valid from the standpoint of if the kid is the number 1 guy in the portal today and he signs and he's a good shooting guard and he signs with a team today, if he signs with a team like a Xavier or New Mexico or whoever, and then Evans enters the portal, they're going to find money for him at the bigger schools, right? No matter who they've already signed. They're going to go to a booster and go, dude, we have a chance to get this kid. We need another $5 million. They're going to figure it out. And that's what's happened even with players, that you've seen sticking around or leaving. Jimmy Jackson last night.
You also have to remember this to that point before you go to your next. I think this is a good discussion. You're talking about you have to fish in the pond you're capable of catching the fish.
Right.
And you're not going to go into the big ocean if you're only geared to catch lake fishing.
Right.
That's New Mexico State. It's some of these small pools. So you're not going to be fishing for those blue blood players, right?
No,
you want them, and if they come to you, that's great.
It'll be rare. It'll be like catching a huge grouper.
That's right.
Every once in a blue moon.
That's right. I mean, you're going to catch that big fish every now and then, but it's not going to be in the lake, right? The lake is, you're geared to fish in the lake. Some people are geared to fish in the ocean, and the Dukes, the UCLA's, the Carolinas, Connecticut, UConn. Those teams are going to be fishing in the ocean for those players. So you have to know as a coach and a program where you should be fishing, because if you're waiting for that guy, or you're saying that it's not going to be fair for him, you're fishing in the wrong lake. And that's your fault.
And what's interesting, two things. Jimmy Jackson said something last night that I thought was really interesting. He said, if you're not going to be a guaranteed top 15 pick in the NBA draft, you're going to make more money on NIL. You should stay. Back in the day, that wouldn't be the case, right? You'd be out of there. But that was a good point. And the other thing, when we get in the NIL money and what lake or ocean you're fishing in, I never realized, and I guess I never thought about it, but BYU next year has the #1 recruit in the country. Everyone says that he's Cooper Flag plus. And he's
I'll wait to see that. I'll wait to see that.
No doubt. We'll wait and see it. We've heard all that too before. McDonald's All-American, all that. However, I didn't realize, and again, I guess I just never thought about it. They're saying BYU might have more NIL money than anybody. And I never really thought about the church and the whole thing that they
have their own network.
Their own network and everything.
They're one of the highest grossing schools in the country. Notre Dame is another one. Because Texas, because they own their own network. Texas, they have their own. So West Coast, we don't think about that over here,
right? Because
we're not familiar with the Mormon following and things like that. But Young took a lot of Mormons over there, and they reproduced. They got a lot of lives, a lot of babies.
They got a lot of money. A lot of people, even after the game last night, when they were interviewing some players on BYU, I heard two of them specifically saying, I can't remember the recruit's name. It's another one that's hard to pronounce, but they were like, well, we're getting him next year, so I'm probably going to stay, because they know that they're getting paid very well, and they're already good, right? They made it to the Sweet 16 and ran into just a buzzsaw in Alabama, but these kids are going to get paid, and they're saying BYU could literally be one of the top 3 or 4 schools when it comes to NIL. Now, the other part about NIL with basketball, and this was addressed yesterday on several publications that I read, is the fact that basketball is now going to start demanding more money from the athletic department, from the football department. So you see football, right? They've already been football starting.
They've been allocated the millions.
Exactly, because it brings in more money. But now these basketball programs that want to compete, and I'm not talking about the B and C teams. I'm talking about even the A teams are going to, you saw Duke football this year give a quarterback a 2-year, $4 million a year contract. So you're going to start seeing these basketball schools that are already having their football programs spending a lot of money. They're going to start getting allocated more money. So what we're seeing this year in the tournament is just the beginning. I mean, we're going to basically see, like you said earlier, so it's almost going to be like all-star teams every different year. And in football, and you and I watch football together quite a bit, I'm a big Notre Dame fan. One thing that stinks about college football now is the fact that you almost have to learn your roster every year because the turnover is so much. You got a new quarterback. Everything's new for the most part. Now, the competition on the field was great. Same with this. You're going to have to learn new teams every year. But, man, these matchups we have in the Sweet 16 and now getting down into the Elite 8 are great matchups. So it's kind of and I know Jay Billis, I watched his interview the other day where he said that he's not ready to say that
he's a smart guy.
And look, I think, and I'll say this about Jay. People are giving him crap about what he said. No one is. So what he said was he's not ready to sit here and say that NIL money has ruined the NCAA tournament. He's not ready to say that that's why there's no upsets, because he can point out
it's too small of a sample size for him.
Correct. He can point out years in the past, and he did, where there was not many upsets. And what I was going to say about Jay is nobody loves giving the NCAA hell more than Jay. Jay is very smart. He knows his stuff. And he loves pointing out when the NCAA screws up or does something wrong. He has his whole career, and he's right on damn near all of it. So when he pointed this out and basically said, I'm not ready to throw in the flag and say, oh, yeah, the upsets are gone, the Cinderellas are gone, I thought it was a very valid point.
And what was his argument for that?
Just because of lack of a sample size. Like this, he could point to other years where there was not many upsets. Even in the 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30.
Here's the difference.
So let's see what happens.
Here's the difference. And I would him and he's probably going to win the debate because he's a lot smarter.
Well, he's also an attorney.
He's an attorney. And I love to argue.
I can debate. Well,
I love to argue. I love to argue sports in particular. And that's right?
No doubt about it. I
So
almost had a heart attack. You admitted it. Holy crap!
Oh my gosh!
I do too.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. That's why we're doing this.
No doubt about
All
it.
right, but let's dig deeper into that, right? And the difference between those years and now is there was no transfer portals, right? The transfer portal is, I think, the one thing that has to stand out, right? You can make the exception one year, and I feel like, okay, he's not overreacting, maybe, and that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to sit back in the position of, I'm just going to sit and wait and watch, and I'm more reactive with saying, this is the reason why. 100% the reason why, because you're building all-star teams. And he knows as well as I do when you're dealing with 5 guys on a court versus 11 guys on a field, it's going to be a lot more impactful when you get that one piece that's missing because you're not going to have the weakness. It's going to give you more depth, and that one guy can make a bigger impact on those 5 players if he gets hot, if he's a good shooter, if he's a great, distributor, whatever it is, versus that one guy that's going to, block better, or that one guy that's going to catch better because he doesn't touch the ball every time or as much as these 5 guys do.
Well, I think the biggest deal with the portal is this. When you recruit kids out of high school, and we, whether they were McDonald's All-American, 5-star, all the accolades you can point to, you don't know how they're going to respond when they're playing college basketball.
Maturity factor, things
Correct.
like that. Well, let me add this. Throw millions of dollars on that.
Exactly. And so, when you with the portal, you get to see an audition, basically. You get to see this kid play for a year.
I get the best version of that kid, or at least a better version that he would have been in high school. Because now I have a track record of what this kid.
You can see what kind of heart he's got. Does he stay out of trouble?
How hard he works.
Yeah.
How what kind of player he is, relatively speaking, to the talent that he's going to be playing against.
Yeah, and that's not to say that, because listen, Cooper Flagg is an anomaly. You don't see many guys like him.
Yeah, we can't use him as the rule.
Exactly. Now there are a lot of good freshmen. I mean, last night, what was it? Bradley or Brian, I forget, the freshman from Arizona who played really good as well. There's freshmen in all these games that are playing. That's today's game as well. There are freshmen are going to be in there. They're going to play. They make differences.
So much younger, know, and starting and really just kind of playing that one sport. But guys are getting bigger, guys are getting faster, guys are getting stronger. There's better nutrition.
7-footers are handling the ball like 6'2" guys.
There's academies that you're going to for special training. The diets, the work effort, the commitment, the money. Yeah. That's all because of the money has grown so high that these kids are aspiring to do that at a younger age.
Well, I brought up Bruce Pearl, just to get into that portal stuff for a minute. But now let's go into tonight's games because we've got some good games tonight. Let's start with Bruce Pearl. Let's start with Auburn versus Michigan. Michigan, as of this morning, was the #1 bet underdog in Vegas. They're getting 8.5 points against Auburn. And to me, that's a tough game because Michigan's a tough team. They've got a really good big man in Golden. They've got a coach who brought Florida Atlantic to the Final Four, so he knows what he's doing. You actually seen 3 of his players scattered throughout this tournament, and he knows how to coach. He knows how to coach in the tournament. Bruce Pearl has yet to win the real big game. He's been close, but he hasn't won it. Auburn kind of comes in, I don't want to say limping in, but they lost 2 of the last 3 regular season against very good teams, so I got to point that out. But I feel like Auburn's just due to have a game where they're on, and I feel like it's been a minute since they've had that. So I think. And it's 8.5 spread, but I think Auburn.
It's 9 now.
It's up to 9. Yeah, everyone's taking Michigan as a popular pick, but I think Auburn wins by double digits. They're due to have a game where they just whoop somebody.
I think what the betting world, the Vegas people are looking at that game is that the spread is so high, and Auburn has snuck by a couple of games. They're not playing great basketball right now.
Yeah.
Right. And Michigan's coming in and they're gaining momentum as they're playing. Right, they have a big mismatch with their center in the middle. Right, they have something different than Auburn really probably hasn't seen much of. Is that 7-footer, for Michigan? So, who's playing really good basketball right now? Auburn is struggling, as we just pointed out, losing 2 of the last 3
of the regular season.
The regular season games. Obviously, they've won in the tournament, but even in the tournament, they have not done it impressively. And I understand what you're saying, but what you can't just hope to turn the light switch on and momentum to come in. There has to be something that triggers that. Right? It's like that. How do I get this snowball rolling? Now, they could eat listen, they're as talented as any one of these teams we're talking about. There's no doubt about that. But there has to be a moment that triggers them to turn that light switch on so that they can start feeling that confidence, just like what we saw with Alabama last night.
You just said exactly what I was going to say. Just like I felt last night, Alabama's guards were due to break out, and they broke out in a big way. I didn't think it'd be that big, but I thought they would end up breaking out and beating BYU by double digits. I feel like Auburn's the same way. I feel like they've kind of come in limping. They've won their first 2 games in the tournament. They've played pretty good, but not great. And I think Michigan's a good team, no doubt. They've got good guard play. Like I said, they got the big 7-footer in the middle. But I think Auburn's got big enough guys where they can bang him around. And I just think Auburn is going to come out and send a message tonight because they've kind of been going into the tournament. A lot of people had them as the best team. A lot of people picked them to win the whole thing. They've been kind of the forgotten of the 4 seeds because Duke's been playing great. Florida's been playing great. Houston's been playing great. Auburn's been kind of the forgotten of the top seeds. And I think tonight is a night where Bruce Pearl has them kind of fired up, and they're going to break out in a big way, in my opinion. We'll see. Michigan.
What's making you feel that?
Same way as I felt with Alabama. They're too good to not have a game where they break out after having some games where they struggle. Again, and the last 2 or 3 of regular season, they lost to, I think, Alabama and Tennessee. Like, it wasn't like they were losing to, whoever.
State.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say a couple of teams, but I don't want to piss off those people.
Some directional.
One was where I went. But I just feel like they're too good of a team to not break out and have another game where they're just okay, do enough to get by. I think they're going to come out tonight.
But to me, that's a hunch.
Well, yeah, that's all betting is. That's all. That's all it is. You can sit here and look at trends, and you can look at all these things you want. I can also break down the lineups and say, well, look, Broom's the best player on the court.
I'll go flip points.
Well, my point is, when you're as good a team as they are, eventually the shooters are going to start making their shots, and
you keep shooting.
Broom's going to get hot, and so they're due to have that game. And I think Michigan is a solid team.
Just saying they're due to have that.
I just think they're going to break out, and I think Michigan's a good team. I'm not taking anything away from them. I just don't think they're going to be able to handle the athleticism that Auburn has, and they're due.
There's no question. There's the reason why they've been the number 1 team in the country
all year,
for many years, for many weeks,
and the number 1 seed in the tournament.
Because when they play their best, the professionals think that they're better than everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. But the problem is they're not playing their best. So what's going to make that switch? That light come on? That's to me. When I see that, I'm like, okay, there they are. But until they do that, they're in a funk. Right? And it's like a hitting slump in baseball.
But we talked about Alabama.
The best hitters in the world, right, are going to go through slumps.
But we talked about Alabama and how their backcourt shooting the ball well. Steers had hit like 5 3-pointers. I want to say in like the last 3 or 4 games. Last night he hit 10. So I feel that when you have great players, their slump is not going to last that long in any sport, but in basketball in particular, shooters are going to shoot. And I think Auburn's going to bring it tonight. I think that the spread's 8.5, 9. I think Auburn handles them by double digits. It would surprise me
with Alabama not shooting well. They beat Robert Morris and they beat St. Mary's.
Okay, well, St. Mary's is a solid team.
Okay, they beat those 2 teams.
They haven't beat anybody.
They didn't have to shoot well because they were just better than them. Their team was better than them. When you even the playing field, right, and you make everything a little bit more equal, what's going to stand out, right? It's not just going to automatically happen because Michigan's going to play great defense. Right?
They're going to try, but Alabama's just got too many athletes. Auburn. I think Auburn's got too many athletes. They got the best player on the court, the best or second best
player of the year. Yeah,
Broom's a stud, and I just think they get it done. So
I'm not debating whether they're going to win or lose the game. I think they're going to win the game.
Yeah,
I'm debating whether they're going to lose by 9 or 10.
Yeah, and 8.5 is a lot of points, man. And Michigan's gritty. Like I said, I love their coach, but I just think that Auburn.
I wouldn't be surprised if that came down to a final possession.
Wow. So you'll take that.
I'm taking Michigan. I'm taking Michigan and the points. I'm not taking them head up. I do think if you're looking at chalk, I have Auburn playing Florida in my semifinals in the Final Four. I have Duke playing Tennessee. I took chalk ones across the board because of what we talked about earlier. And I do believe that with all my heart is that those are going to be the best matchups.
Where's mine? I'm trying to get my pick. I know we both we're doing pretty good, but all right. So I'm taking Auburn minus 8.5. You're taking Michigan with 8.5. And then next game, and this is the one I'm excited. Ole Miss, Michigan State. Michigan State's minus 3.5. Michigan State.
That's my upset.
Well, Ole Miss to me has a very good chance. Now I looked through both teams' schedules. I went through Michigan State's schedule. I went through Ole Miss's schedule. Neither one of them had a win that just made me go, all right. I mean, they had some good wins. I'm not saying that, but like there wasn't anything that obviously they both play in good conferences, right? So they're going to have.
Wait.
Well, SEC, but the Big Ten. I mean, Michigan State plays in a solid conference. We're talking about Michigan, and
they have very good basketball teams in there. I don't know if it's the SEC.
It's not the SEC.
The SEC this year has been as advertised.
Oh, it really
great. Has been.
I mean, even Arkansas.
That's what I'm saying. A 10 seed last night, almost the first double-digit seed going into the Elite Eight, and they very easily they blew it.
Oh,
and they blew it because that's why they're a 10 seed, right? Low game. They don't have guys that are close. So there's a reason why they're a 10 seed, but they could have probably been much higher if they were in a different conference.
Well, and also, speaking of Arkansas real quick, they also had.
Imagine if Arkansas.
They lost their best player at the beginning of the year. They lost their second best player.
Imagine if Arkansas was in the ACC.
Oh, they would
What's the record?
They would have finished second or third.
They would have finished second.
Yeah.
No, they definitely finished second.
Yeah, Clemson might have had some form during the year.
They would have beat Clemson.
Well, no, their injuries. I mean, I'm telling you, the injuries. The reason they got better in the tournament is because they started getting guys back. But Ole Miss is very athletic. They've got a good big guy in the middle. They've got a great coach. Beard is
they've been battle tested.
They've been battle tested. But then Michigan State, listen, we both love we love what he stands for. The dude has won. He's won national championships. He makes the Final Fours. Tournaments are his time. He always does well, it seems, in tournaments. They're a very tough team. They play kind of like Duke, just from the standpoint of a very controlled basketball game. They don't have the athletes that Duke has, but they do have great players. I just think this one's right. Wouldn't surprise me again if Michigan State wins, but Ole Miss, I agree. I think Ole Miss is gonna give it to them.
This is one of those games to me that how you speed up, you slow down, right? And Izzo has a very good track record of making teams play to his strengths, right? He can if he feels like he has an opportunity to beat you up tempo, he'll speed the game up. He can play that type of game with his players. Michigan State is going to be prepared. I don't know, if Ole Miss is going to. I mean, they have to be prepared.
He's a great coach.
Well, you're right. He is a great coach, and they've also played against teams in their conference that played both Alabama or Tennessee.
Name all of them. Yeah,
Alabama or Tennessee.
14 teams.
They're completely different tempos in the way they play, and they've played against both of them. Right? They may have not had the athletes to match those, but you learn something through those losses. Right? You're supposed to. You learn one thing through a win. You learn two things through a loss. And they have plenty of losses, so they should have learned a lot. Right? Now, whether they're athletic enough to be able to compete, that's the thing and the difference of why I think they're going to be better than Michigan State. Right? Because the athletes and the talent is going to be able to force Michigan State to play to their tempo.
Yeah, I agree. So we both think Ole Miss has got a good shot there as an underdog.
I like them head up.
Yeah, I do too. I think they win the game.
I have a 14 parlay right now.
No, I didn't take them. I don't think I
have a 14 parlay going right now, where I just bet the money line, and I took Auburn, I took I just said Miss Ole Miss, I took Florida, and then I took Tennessee. Houston and Tennessee.
Well,
Florida already went through.
Houston,
Tennessee. I have Auburn and I have Ole Miss. Those are my 14 parlay.
Houston, to me, they're taking out Purdue. Again, they're 8.5 point favorite. 131.5 is the over-under. To me, if there is a blowout tonight, this is the game because, look, Purdue's a solid team. Their coach is great. They were just in the championship. I love their coach and what he stands for. I think that tonight they run into a team that, again, we talked about this last show, how Houston's they play great defense and that they can go in scoring droughts as well. But I think that they're going to dictate the pace. And I think Calvin Sampson, again, has been there, done that. And it seems, especially lately in the last few years. But I think if there is a blowout, this will be the one. But I mean, Purdue's scrappy, and when they get hot, they can fill it up.
their coach, maybe not their team, but they've developed some tradition at Purdue.
Yeah.
Right. In the last couple of years with this coach,
Mm-hmm.
because they've had success. Right. They've been close. They've knocked on the door. Those things don't go away. Right. Those things resonate for years to come because you still have leftover from the teams that you may have not had last year. Just like UConn, when they gave Florida all they could handle. Right. I think Purdue, for about a half, to about three-quarters of the game, is going to be giving Houston all they can handle. But ultimately, it just comes down to, can you continue that for 40 minutes? Right? And I think that's where Houston separates in that last 10 minutes athleticism. And I think you have to do on the back and say, hey, Purdue run. You fought your asses off, but you just didn't have what it took tonight.
Yeah, and look, they have had a good run. They've had big injuries too throughout the year. Purdue has, so to even get to this point, I got to give them credit back. And then the game that you talk about your parlay. I've got a 3-team parlay that I've already hit the first two of. Now I just need over 144.5 in this Tennessee Kentucky game tonight.
Does it surprise you how many games have gone over in the tournament?
It has. Yesterday, every game.
I don't know if you remember the stat that you gave me within the first week or whatever it was. The unders in the first week.
Yeah.
Right. And the odds would suggest that you always bet the under. Because the pressure and things.
I never checked to see how that did this year.
They got blown out of the water. Everybody, there's been more overs, I think, is what they said. I remember hitting them saying is that in this tournament, then maybe before the over, there's a lot of teams scoring higher. You just saw it last night.
Yeah, every game.
100 to 93.
Yeah, last night the favorites won straight up, and the over.
What was it? What was the over? 124.
It was one. No, one. The over under for it.
No. What was the over? It was 188.
The final score was 113-88.
113-88.
Yes, they went over 200. So yeah, the overs last night both cleared. I'm hoping this Tennessee Kentucky one does, but this is a game.
113 is the most points ever scored in a Sweet 16.
Yep.
Ever.
Yep.
Ever.
Yep.
And you look at all the games last night. There's not these 55 to 74, 60 games.
Like I said, even against Alabama, BYU still scored 88 points and lost.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. The scoring's been up. So I hope this game goes over tonight. Kentucky, Tennessee. We mentioned this earlier. They played twice this year. Kentucky's won both of them. I think one by 5 and one by 11, if I'm not mistaken. Tennessee plays really good defense, but has a hard time scoring at times. They played really well in their conference tournament and then into the NCAA tournament. Kentucky, again, great athlete. Pope in his first year there has done a really good job. Some ups and downs, but has got this team playing really well. This game's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And
who do you like in it?
Yeah, I think it's hard to beat a good team like Tennessee 3 times. So I think I would take Tennessee. They're 4.5-point favorites. I think this will probably be a close game. We'll find out if Kentucky is just a horrible matchup for them and can beat them 3 times this year. But I think Tennessee is playing as good as they've played all year long. Now, Rick Barnes is another coach who struggled in these big games in the tournament, and so that kind of scares you a little bit. But I watched that they were sitting in practicing yesterday a little bit, and Barnes was on him. I mean, he was on his team. You thought the first day of practice, he was on him. But I like that. He's not letting them get to look forward to the Elite Eight or try to look past Kentucky.
It's easy to motivate and kick your ass.
Yeah, no doubt.
So you have an opportunity to come in right now and use that as point blank period.
Yep.
Right? I mean, that's it right there. This team has owned you. And they think they're going to come in here and own you again.
Yep.
And that's not the motivation I need. I don't even need my coach to be telling me.
I'm with you.
I know exactly what they've done to us the last 2 times we played. And I know how poorly we played, right? Versus what we did to lose those games. Now we have to correct those.
Yeah.
Tennessee, and I think the reason why I like Tennessee versus Kentucky in this game is that Kentucky is a bad matchup for Tennessee. But I do like Tennessee in this game because their momentum. Right. And we talked about it earlier. Is like, why is this team all of a sudden, going to go out there and play great with, a team like Auburn? Why is Auburn just the switch going to turn off? Why is the switch going to turn off? They're playing. They were in the SEC championship and lost barely to Florida. It was a great game.
Yep.
Last minute in the game, Florida and separated, but Tennessee gave them all the talent. Very easily could have won that conference. So they're playing great basketball right now. I don't believe they've had a tough matchup up to this point. They've had a pretty easy sailing. They beat Wofford, and then they beat UCLA, and they beat them handily.
And UCLA is a solid team. They didn't play that well. You're right. Tennessee
gave Arizona all they can handle.
Sure did. And Kentucky has beat, I think, their first game.
Kentucky beat Troy, and then they beat Illinois.
And Illinois got two guys in the backcourt that'll be top 15, 20 picks in the NBA.
The SEC is, I don't think, we haven't talked about it enough, I don't think, is that how good the SEC has been.
Yeah.
And when you look at getting 7 teams into the Sweet 16,
14 in the tournament.
14 in the tournament, half the teams make the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
And then you still got teams from the SEC playing against each other.
You got,
and all the other matchups, they're still there. Ole Miss is I think going to upset, Michigan State, and you got Florida, right? And then you have Tennessee, Kentucky, and up top you have Bama. I mean, you're going to have definitely have one.
Well, you've got Alabama and Florida already. You're definitely going to have the winner of the Tennessee.
You can have 3, 4. You can have 5 teams in the SEC from the SEC in the Elite Eight.
Yep, never happened before.
I don't think anybody's saying this, but make an argument of why the SEC is overrated.
Yeah, you can't. And anyone that does is just trying to do it to argue because you have 14 teams, and then you have 7.
And more than half of them make, 5 of those 7 make it to the Elite Eight.
Yeah, but they literally got 5 teams in the Elite Eight, and they're definitely going to have at least 3. So
they could have all 4 if actually all 4 in the Final 4.
Never. Yeah, that's right.
Beats Duke.
Yeah,
you're going to have.
Let's hope that doesn't happen.
You still have Houston, right? Tennessee or Kentucky will be playing Houston if Houston takes care of business like we think they're going to. Then you can already have Florida in, and then if Auburn, takes care of business, they could be playing Ole Miss. They can automatically have another team in.
Yeah, and they're at least going to have 3 in the Elite Eight, which is.
And they can have all 4 in the Final 4. It could be all 4 SEC, like watching the SEC tournament.
That's what I say.
Winning. So whoever said it, I think it
was Jay Billis.
Whoever winning and he was right. Winning the SEC tournament might be tougher than winning the NCAA tournament.
Yeah,
and this is proof to his pudding.
Yeah, he was on top of that. And listen, anyone like I said that doesn't want to give the SEC credit for what they've done is just looking for a reason. The head of the SEC, by the way. You got they. By the way, we talked about basketball getting money and getting more money for NIL because of the success of football.
I'd like to discuss that later on or another time.
But the SEC, what I was going to say is the SEC. I think when we look back 5 years from now, we're going to say the SEC was the first ones to get that. They're the first ones to understand that we got to pour money into basketball.
They've already been getting that, and there's a reason why the SEC has been dominant. Why? Why is that?
Well,
because they've had the best football conference. I made that argument months ago. You're starting to see that money already carry over with facilities, with recruiting, with budgets, right? All that money is already influxing into the school because of Title IX and the ability for all these programs to share that revenue that is brought in through the football programs and through the SEC network and through their success from winning bowl games and national championships. They're sharing a whole lot different pot than everybody else.
Yeah.
And it's a lot bigger than what the Pac-12 was. The reason why Pac-12 gone, is because the SEC has kicked their ass. And same thing, they had to go to the Big 10 or the Big 12.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the bottom line.
Let's take a break. We're going to come back. I want to, we don't have enough time to get into the football stuff. We're going to say that for Monday because we want to go through the Panthers and recap the free agents.
We have a great guest.
We got a great guest on Monday to go through that too. Plus, we'll recap the great basketball action this weekend. But when we come back, I just want to touch on my favorite day of the sports year, which is opening day baseball, which was yesterday, and now opening weekend, which I know in the South, a lot of Braves fans, Orioles fans, whoever it may be that you ended up watching growing up on on TV, Cubs, Nationals, whoever it was. I'm going to
steal a line, and I'm going to use it on you because as my boss,
you're going to say, don't talk baseball.
As my boss, you would throw this in my face every single time.
Yeah.
And when we get back, I'm going to show you what that line is.
Well, I know what it is, but on opening day, if you're a baseball enthusiast like I am, yesterday was just a great day. And I just want to talk about that when we get back.
It's time to suit up. Here's your host, DJ the Suit Stout.
Welcome back to Suit Up Sports. I'm DJ the Suit Stout along with Frank Garcia. Been talking college basketball, March Madness, great time of year. But yesterday is my favorite day of the sports calendar. It's opening day in baseball. I love baseball. I'm a huge baseball fan. Great memories with my dad going to games and watching games. Great memories of coaching both my boys, in North Carolina, winning state championships with both kids, which is a memory that they'll never forget.
And he loves to rub
I'm not going to even get into that one game, but just being able to coach both my boys to state championships in 2 different years back to back was great. So to me, I do have that spot in my soul for the love of baseball.
And now I have to slow you down a little bit.
We're not going to talk baseball too long, by the way. He's catching on. I don't want you to turn off because
as we went to break, I told you what he would tell me as a radio host for the last 15 years. The only thing worse than watching baseball on TV is talking about it on the radio.
Yeah.
I don't care how much you love baseball. If nobody listens to when you talk baseball, don't talk it. Yeah. Nobody is going to tune in. You're going to tune out immediately. That was the message you sent to me.
True.
And now you want to talk baseball.
Well, there's a few times
you said the difference is that you said in all those instances that were great and memorable, what? You were at the game with your dad, not talking about it on TV, not watching it at home. Going to the game, just like NASCAR, and we're in NASCAR country, is a completely different experience than watching it on TV or talking about it on the radio.
Well, you are right. I did say that.
Especially without having a pro team here.
Yeah, no doubt.
If this was New York or Chicago
then you can get away with it.
Boston?
My point always was that, people don't want to hear us talking baseball on the radio, and especially in a town like Charlotte where we don't have a team. Now, the majority of people here are probably Brave fans, but we do have such a melting pot of folks from Ohio who are big Cincinnati or Cleveland fans. I mean, I've got 5 buddies that are huge. So you do have that. Still, you're right. It's not something that you should dive into, in my opinion, except maybe a few times a year, and that would be opening day, playoffs. If you
World Series,
and that's about it.
Some great streak that's happening.
Yeah, but
some historical performance.
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, or unless you have a guest on,
somebody bats for the cycle,
going to be able to talk about, just tell great stories. But opening day is one of the times I think you can. And Frank will tell you this. I love baseball. I'm a big Mets fan. I love getting in the pool and putting the Mets on the big. Me a big Yeti of bourbon, and I love it. It relaxes me. It's just, end of the day, it's great.
And it relaxes me too, enough it puts me to sleep.
Well, hey, you're relaxed. And so yesterday was opening day, and I watched as many games as I could. I watched the Mets lose.
So who's supposed to be good this year?
Well, the Dodgers have
Yankees.
No,
Dodgers?
Well, the Dodgers may not lose a game. They may go 162-0. They spent more money than any team in the history of baseball. I think in the last 2 years they've handed out $2 billion.
Let me ask you.
Now the Mets are right behind them.
So since we're talking a little baseball, I have some fan questions.
Yep.
How do fans feel, or why is Major League Baseball allowing teams to just go out there and hoard these players? Because it seems to me like there would be huge advantages. And there's not a lot of parity in these big market cities like LA, New York, Boston, Chicago, where they have an opportunity to go spend hundreds of millions of dollars more than maybe in Arizona or Atlanta. Maybe Atlanta's a bad idea. Milwaukee, or you fill in the blank with some of these smaller teams.
Well, it's a problem. And one of the ways they try to fix it is when you go over the threshold of salaries, right? Like, I'll give you an example of the Mets. The Mets right now are over the tax where they get taxed, and it's 100% tax. Mm-hmm. So any player they sign right now, they have to pay 100% tax on. So they had a catcher go down, and they have
to pay 100%
on whatever they.
So if they sign a guy for $10 million, they have to pay $10 million.
I don't know the exact how it works, but I know it's 100% of the luxury tax. So it might. I don't know exactly how it works. I do know that it keeps teams for the most part from signing guys. Mets could use pitching right now and a catcher. And they haven't.
So how does the Dodgers go spend $2 billion?
Well, that's the other problem is that and the Dodgers are a great example. They're deferring these payments, 10 years, 12 years. It's insane.
Bobby Bonilla payments.
Kind of like that, except for Bobby gets $1 million a year. These guys are going to freaking hit, the mother load.
So
but
they don't count that against.
Juan Soto for the Mets just signed a 15-year, $765 million. It's the biggest contract in the history of any sport. $765 million over 15 years.
Is that guaranteed?
Guaranteed.
What happens if baseball goes out of?
Or if he gets hurt? I mean, yeah, that's the thing. So it is a problem in baseball for sure. But I'm lucky enough to be. I'm a Mets fan, and we've sucked for so long. Last year we had a great run at the end of the season, and hopefully they
great pitching.
They lost yesterday, pitching, and they had the best opening day record of any team ever, 44-14 or something, and they lost yesterday. But they had a bad start last year too. But my point is, money doesn't always translate, and there are some teams. You mentioned Milwaukee, who is not in this big market, but man, they're making the playoffs every year because their general manager, who now is a Mets general manager, but even the one that took his place, they draft well. They kind of do it the way you're supposed to do it. They draft well, but when it comes time to keep their own players, they lose them, and that's what stinks.
They can't keep them.
It's kind of like being a Hornets fan.
Yeah,
like rarely do we keep the good players.
You took the words right out of my mouth. And there's not. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of differences, with market shares and the luxury tax or the way that they're handling baseball than they do basketball. Because when you look at the cap, which is supposed to it's supposed to be a cap for a reason, nobody's paying attention to the cap. And you look at what the successful teams in the NBA are doing, they're overpaying, don't care. They pay the luxury tax. They win championships. They have enough money because the city that they live in is going to, when they get these big players, they're going to bring that buzz and they're going to make it up and some in just the revenue that they're making through the jersey sales and the ticket sales and the beer sales and all the other things that go along with that. It seems like the same thing's happening in baseball.
It is, but there are some exceptions. For instance, I mentioned Milwaukee. They've been in the playoffs pretty consistently lately. Kansas City.
Well, yeah, you have to build through the draft. You build through the draft.
So there are some teams that are doing it right, but the problem is when their players become really big, where do they go? Dodgers, Mets, Yankees.
Yeah, they get paid.
And they get paid. And that's where the hard part is. With all that being said, opening day still, to me, is just a special day. You see, when I watched a bunch of different games and you just see a lot of families and fathers and sons playing catch. And anyway, to me, it's just kind of a nostalgic thing that I love. And yesterday,
that's one of the things.
And I'll watch. Now it's on. If I'm around, I'm watching the Mets. If I'm on my phone and a meeting, I'm sneaking and watching the Mets. So I'm excited about opening day. But let's real quick.
Well, it's really kind of one of those things in sports that we've got away from. Is like you used a great word, nostalgia. There's not a lot of nostalgia anymore or tradition in sports. We've kind of put that by the wayside. When you start blowing up conferences that we've had for hundreds of years, and you start taking away rivalries that have existed, that have made that nostalgia exist in college sports, I can understand why opening day is important for a lot of people.
Yeah, and you nailed it. Even with college athletics, I mean, I brought my boys Dylan and Connor to see Duke play at Cameron, and it was great. And we brought my dad, and it was a memory that we'll have forever. College basketball is not the same. I brought my kids to a Notre Dame football game 2 years ago, and spent 3 or 4 days there and walked the campus, and it even cemented even more to my children why there was no way in hell I would ever get let into Notre Dame. You feel like you're in a Harry Potter movie. It's so beautiful, and you
not to mention the grades.
That was really what I was alluding to.
You fit right in with the drinking.
Yeah, with that part.
Catholics like to drink.
There's no doubt, but there was some nostalgia with that, obviously. But yeah, you kind of lost that. In baseball, to me, still is the one sport that has it, and hopefully this is a fun season. That, like I said, the Dodgers are loaded. I mean, they got an all-star at every position. They got an all-star pitching staff. I mean, they're unbelievable. Our boy AC, tries to downplay his excitement. They're coming off a World Series win. They got the best player in baseball, Ohtani, who's going to be out of pitch this year too.
If he can stay healthy, because you pay these guys so much money.
Yeah,
and it's like they take the LeBron style of baseball, and they sit out and they make hundreds of millions of dollars, and they play every third day or every third game.
Well, let's talk about your boy LeBron, because I know LeBron missed a couple weeks and managed to go to see his son play in a championship game instead of his own team play. And then since he's come back, they've won, I think, 1 of 3. He's not playing well.
He had a tip in the other night.
Was really the only good thing he's done since he's been back.
Had a bad turnover last night that cost him a game.
But he has this feud now with Stephen A. Smith on ESPN, which has been it was entertaining to watch at the beginning. Now I'm kind of like, okay, both of you shut up. But it was kind of interesting to see, number one, the most famous.
What's the feud about?
Well,
for people that haven't,
LeBron approached Stephen A. Smith at a Lakers game. During the timeout in the third or fourth quarter, Stephen A. was sitting courtside. LeBron walks over to him and basically says, "Stop talking about my son.
Take my son's name
out of your mouth and blah, blah, blah.
And bleep, bleep, bleep.
Bleep, bleep, bleep. And then walk back to the huddle. Stephen A. Smith, then the next day on TV, had his rebuttal, told the story, and then it's kind of went on from there. And
but
then,
he also kind of he said he wasn't talking about his son.
Well, he said he wasn't talking as a basketball player, he was talking as a father.
He was talking to LeBron as a father and how he put him in these positions and how he kind of held the meritocracy with forcing a team to take his son or else he wouldn't play for that team.
Mm-hmm.
So he used that.
He was saying you kind of put your son in this position where now he's got the second lowest field goal percentage in the history of the NBA and blah, 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 blah. And so
this is not Bronny's fault.
Right.
This is Dad's fault.
By the way, Bronny since then, I think, had 20-something points for the Lakers. And then, I mean, he actually, I know, they were also winning by a bunch. But Stephen A. Smith basically, I felt
Stephen A. wasn't wrong.
I felt Stephen A. kind of pulled back after LeBron approached him. I think when he told the story, he did it with kid gloves and he tried to come from the standpoint of LeBron was coming to him as a dad, which I can agree with that. That's fine. He was just saying you put him in this spot in the first place if you didn't do it exactly what you just said about forcing the team to draft him or whatever. So then LeBron goes on Pat McAfee the other day for an hour.
Which just happens to be right after
Stephen A.
First Take.
On the same network.
Didn't give Stephen A. the opportunity to interview the king.
And LeBron covered a lot of things, but Stephen A. was part of what he covered, and he hammered him pretty good. And then after the show,
to embarrass him,
definitely tried to.
There's a lot of things that go. It wasn't just a hammering. He tried to embarrass him.
Well, even after the
show,
put
a boxing video
when he put
up.
the boxing video of Stephen A. Smith hitting bags or whatever he said, and he certainly is not a boxer. I think we'll all agree on that.
And
but LeBron put that up there,
trying to embarrass him,
jab him, and then Stephen A. yesterday fired back and brought up the fact that he didn't go to Dwayne Wade's Hall of Fame, and if it wasn't for Dwayne Wade, you would never had your first championship. And he did say he brought Kobe into it, which I didn't think he should have, but he mistakenly said that LeBron wasn't at Kobe's funeral.
Which he was.
He did have to the next hour come back on and say, "I'm sorry that he was," and I shouldn't even have brought that up in the first place. Is what he said.
He apologized for that.
He did.
He made his.
But it's become this back and forth where
this feud, this childish feud,
a childish feud. And listen, here's the deal. You know this from working in radio, and you've been on both sides. You've been the athlete getting interviewed at the locker, and you've also been on the radio interviewing the guy at the locker. And when you've got the microphone in front of you every day as a radio or TV host, you've got the upper hand, right? Because if you have an audience, and Stephen A. Smith certainly has that, you've got the upper hand. The athlete's not going to win that battle. Now, that's not to say that people aren't, because I've read a million comments that say Stephen A's out of line, LeBron's out of line, whatever the case may be. LeBron, he's even getting crapped on for going on with McAfee instead of going on with Gilbert Arenas or one of these other guys. So to me, it was one of those things that should have just been left alone after they both said their piece.
We are dealing, DJ, with one of the most egotistical, soft-minded, sensitive athletes, maybe to have that type of clout and that type of athleticism and that type of opportunity.
Top 3 player probably in history.
Potentially. But here's what happens. As an athlete, I know that if I have a fight or a debate or a disagreement with a sports reporter or a columnist or somebody in the media, if I go and I start trying to fight that person through the media, where that's their arena, it would be the same equivalent of that media guy trying to come and play me on the basketball court. They're a pro at that. They're going to have the final say. They're going to be able to create the narrative, and they're going to be able to make you look foolish and childish for doing that. There is zero advantage to LeBron by saying anything other than just letting this slide. If he had to say something to Stephen A. Smith, he said it. Let it go. I'll give you multiple examples of great athletes that never said anything to try to have to defend themselves. Tiger Woods, he got attacked. There was a lot of times people wanted him to say more. Remember when Fuzzy Zeller, asked, with the dinner at the Masters, when they were going to serve the fried the watermelon, the fried chicken.
Yeah.
And everybody wanted Tiger to be offended by that.
Yeah.
And you know what Tiger did? Okay, I understand that hurts some people, but I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep going. He didn't use that as a platform.
He didn't get baited into
get baited into using it as a platform. Jordan had multiple things: gambling, stepping out, to all the things that he was accused of. Not just to mention, Tiger also had the things with the
wife hitting him in the mouth with a 7-iron.
The 7-iron. Didn't say anything about that. Tiger Woods is another one.
Well, and here's the thing that Stephen A. Smith said. He said that the reason that LeBron hates him and has been mad at him all these years is because Stephen A. Smith believes that Michael Jordan's the GOAT.
And he is.
And I agree too. And he goes, but there's no debating that. Because he says that, he says LeBron took that so personal that's what started the beef. And then the Bronny thing, when Stephen A. Smith said to LeBron, look, man, and he did, his exact words were, as a father, how are you doing this, your son? Which again, you can sit here and say he was right or wrong, or about Bronny's a whole different story. I'm not saying about that, but I'm saying to sit there and to say something to LeBron.
LeBron's ego is so fragile, DJ, that he also thinks Michael Jordan doesn't communicate with him because he's chasing him and he thinks he's better than him. He's trying to make the accusation about Jordan's ego and being fragile and those things. Which,
by the way, let me tell you something. Michael Jordan has a huge ego, but he doesn't handle things like LeBron does in the media.
But it's so wrong, because what did Michael Jordan do with Kobe, who was chasing him, was mimicking him? He had conversations with him.
Well, he sent him game film.
There's multiple times and opportunities where he reached out to him and they were friends and they Michael Jordan wanted to help Kobe.
Yeah.
LeBron is so butthurt and so fragile that he doesn't think that Jordan would be there to help. Yes, he was.
Well, he said that his quote, I think, was that Jordan won't talk to him until after his playing career is over. And he said the reason why, but he said that they get along, all that. Jordan loved the way Kobe was a younger Jordan. Yeah. And he was sending game film and he talked to him. And again, so for LeBron, Jordan definitely has. I remember we tried to get Jordan on the show for years and years and years. With Pac-Man, and he wouldn't come on, or he had a team that's their job.
He was the owner of the team.
Yeah, but he had a team of people whose job was to basically read the papers every day, go through this and make sure no one was talking this or talking that. Kendrick Perkins on ESPN told a story about how Jordan and him were tight, and he got free shoes sent to him always. But the minute he got on TV and made one bad comment about the Bobcats or Orange or wherever it was, the shipment stopped, no more shoes. So they all got egos, right? Every athlete has egos.
There's a big difference though.
No doubt. Well,
Jordan wasn't fighting that
in the media. That's what I was going to say. 100%. Jordan didn't go in the media and fight that battle, and he didn't use different Pat McAfee, for instance, type of show to go on. And it was
a very popular show.
Oh, and it's a great show. And I love McAfee. McAfee's great.
McAfee did a great job with the interview.
Did a great job.
He did a great, and Stephen A. admitted that.
Mm-hmm.
Great job. Congratulations. I'm not jealous or bitter about this whatsoever. You did a phenomenal job. Congratulations. Let me pat you on the back first off for getting LeBron James to come on your show. Now to Mr. LeBron James.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
there's a reason why people call him Queen James or LeBron's, right? It's because of the fragile attitude and the flopping and all the things that go with it. He already has that stigma of, being a flopper and being soft and, doing all the things to, try to entice the calls and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with a little gamesmanship, right? That's what you call that as an athlete. But to take it to the degree that he takes it, it's so overboard, for a guy of his caliber to do those things.
Yeah.
And that's what I think disappoints a lot of fans out there, is that you see that this guy really could be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, and overtake Jordan if he was likable.
Yeah.
And he used to be. So I don't know when that changed. I remember the first time when he was in Cleveland and he gave his player of the year, his MVP speech, and he did it without notes. And I thought, this is a 19-year-old kid. How impressive is that? He's a smart kid up there talking about his mom and his upbringing and how hard he's worked to get there and how important it is and how his teammates, and he gave credit to everybody else. What has changed in his life? And I'm going to tell you what's changed. Money.
Well, no doubt.
And money and fame and people patting you on the back and telling you, you're this and you're that. Yep. And they're putting in his ear that you're not the greatest. let your actions speak louder than your words.
And listen, his actions. Look, the guy's, like I say, he's one of the best players in the history of basketball. And to this day, to be 40 years old and playing the way he plays is remarkable. But here, Kendrick Perkins, who I could take or leave. There's times I can't stand. There's times I think he makes good points. But he told us a good story yesterday, and he said, when I was playing, I think he was with Minnesota, or maybe it was Boston. And the team was playing really well, and this team started running calls for him, post-ups. From Garnett was hurt, so he was getting more PT.
Perkins?
Yeah. And
they're running plays for Perkins?
Yeah, post-ups. And so back when players posted up, but he'd have really good games, right? And he's feeling himself, and Garnett pulled him aside one day, and he said, hey, listen, I'm going to tell you the key to all this. Now, you just had a good game tonight, and you're going to go home, and you're going to turn on ESPN, and you're going to turn on TNT, and you're going to see them talking about how great you played. But make sure when you have a stinker of a game, you go home and you turn on ESPN. You do the same thing when you have bad games. Don't just make it when you have good games. LeBron is just on one of the good games, and that's. I thought that was a really good way to summarize.
Well, I think when we saw
people have with him.
When we saw, and this is years ago now, there was a film that leaked out. I believe it was of LeBron getting dunked on in a preseason game. And it was a nobody kid, and he came and dunked on him, and all over him, on top of him, knocking LeBron to the floor. LeBron went to whoever that guy's media was, whoever put that post out there, and had it removed because he didn't want to be embarrassed nationally with that film.
Yeah. I mean, listen,
that's the truth.
And it's pretty much the consensus from the media, which, again, the media these days are out of control themselves, right? There are times where media, we can get into politics and talk about how the media is out of control, but they are out of control. But in this instance, LeBron doesn't need to do that. Now, again, you mentioned the tip-in he had the other night. His tip-in, I'm going to screw this stat up, but I want to say that he is like 2 for 35 on game-winning opportunities. That was the second one.
I don't know if you've ever noticed, and this is one of the things that my pet peeves and why I don't think he's the greatest, is that in crunch time, what does LeBron want to do?
Pass.
Why?
Because he don't want the shot.
He doesn't want – it's not necessarily about the shot. He doesn't want the pressure of the free throw if he gets fouled, right? Because the shot – he can either hit or miss, and it's like, okay, there's no expectations. But if I take it to the lane, which I'm going to have a better chance to win this game because of my size, my athleticism, my ability, I might get fouled. Now I have to go out there and prove it on the line. He doesn't want that pressure. Yeah, and that's the difference for me, and why I don't feel like LeBron will ever be considered one of the greatest. I mean, let me take that back. He's going to be considered. You got to have him top He's going to be in top. He's going to be in top 10. Yeah. But I would take 5 guys over him on a starting 5. He might come off the bench and give me some minutes, but he ain't going to be there in crunch time. He's going to pass. He's going to. I got my 5 already that are dogs and are going to fight. And LeBron used to be that way. That's what's crazy, is that he's grown into this fragile ego where he's afraid to go out there and be embarrassed and to miss and to make a mistake or to fail. Right? Yeah. You can't be afraid to fail if you're going to be one of the greatest. You have to want it. And we'll see what happens with that. The Lakers are struggling right now since he's come back. So we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully both of them shut up and move on. Well, I know this about that. The thing that we're to put a cherry on top of this. You don't fight the fight. You let your actions speak louder than your words, and you let your fans do your fighting through the media. Yep. They're going to be the ultimate judge. And so the media is going to say what they're going to say. Right. But if you go out there and try to convince them, if you try to argue with them, you try to fight with them, they're just going to. You're not going to win. You're not going to win that battle ever. No, you're not going to win that battle. Thank you guys for joining us today. You got a great weekend of sports. We've got some big ones. March Madness tonight. If you're a baseball fan, you got play. I know the Mets play tonight at 8 o'clock. I'll be watching the Braves. Lost a tough one in San Diego yesterday, but they'll continue that series this afternoon and this weekend. So you got a great weekend of sports. Elite 8 coming this weekend, and then Final Four next weekend, next Friday, I guess, right? Friday and Sunday. No, Saturday and Monday. National Championship will be Monday next Monday. Yeah, week from Monday. So we're almost there, man. Time flies by. But enjoy the games and enjoy your weekend. And thank you so much for joining us.